Welcome to Kiln Farm Nursery on a lovely spring day. The birds are singing, the sky is blue, and lots of customers are asking us about buying a cherry tree for their garden. In this video, I'm going to talk you through what things you need to consider when you're buying your tree, and then I'm going to talk you through different varieties that you might want to put in your garden once you've considered that. So the first thing you need to think about is make sure if you're buying a tree for blossom that it is an ornamental tree. You can get cherry trees that are fruit trees and they haven't been bred for blossom, although they do have beautiful blossom. It's all about the fruit. So go for an ornamental. Secondly, you really want to think about what type of blossom you would like. There are so many different sorts and some come out earlier than others and they don't last very long, so you really want to make sure that the one that you like is the one that you have in your garden. You can have single, you can have doubles, and it ranges right the way through from white, light pink to dark pink. So really choose your blossom carefully. And the third really important thing is to think about what size tree ultimately it will be and what shape it will be, because somebody who has a small garden might choose something very different to somebody who has a larger space. But I promise you, there is going to be a cherry for every occasion and every garden. Even if you haven't got much of a garden and you only have a space for a pot, never fear. You still can have a flowering cherry because there are dwarf varieties. And this one is called Kojonomai. It's a dwarf flower. It flowers really early and it's my favourite plant for Easter actually, because usually these little white blossoms are really dainty. They're coming out about Easter time. Obviously, Easter is a variable feast, so sometimes it's still bare, but you don't need to worry because the stems and the branches are such a pretty shape that you can hang little decorations and little Easter eggs on them anyway. Often in containers, people feel that they have to have something that's evergreen, but because of those branches, I think it still gives a structure in the garden, and I believe some people use it to make bonsai cherry trees. So what about the next stage up, when you've got a really small garden and you've only got a tiny space? So this is your answer to that. But you can see the shape very clearly, because you haven't got flowers yet, that it's like a flagpole or a maypole. It's very tall and the branches just stretch up and you'll have flower all the way along that. So if you've got a little corner in a garden or just on the side of a patio, this would be a perfect place for it. So the Amanigawa goes straight up and is only stretching out about 1 metre. If you've got a little bit more space but it's still a narrow spot, then you could use something like the spires. So it has that same shape, but these branches do stretch out further to the side. And as you can see, this one is looking beautiful with its pale pink single blossom. What about if you haven't got that much space, or you don't want to block a view, or perhaps you want something in your front garden so you have it in front of your window but you still don't block too much light? Well, something like the snow showers is a perfect solution because it's a weeping cherry. It has a weeping habit and it's been stopped at the top here, and so any more branches that come out are going to really rise up and then come down again. So you always know ultimately how high your tree is going to get, and it will always have this cascading feel about it. And this one here again has got very dainty little pale blossoms. So if you've got a lovely big space in your garden for another tree, even a small garden, you can prune that tree to keep it in a reasonable size. And when you look at the labels, you'll find that it will say sometimes between 4 and 8 metres for most of the cherries. So as long as you keep pruning it on a regular basis, once a year, you will find that you're able to keep it manageable and it will still bloom and still look beautiful and still have lovely foliage in your garden. So, but don't be too put off. There are certain ones that I particularly like and are firm favourites. So this one is called the Bride, and this is an example of your single foliage. And it's just a really pretty pale colour. And I've chosen this one to show you the blossom because this is Ben Yutaka and it's just really pretty. semi-double. You can see that there's a lot more petals there, and I love the darkness of it, and then it fades to light in the inside, so that's a really pretty one. If you really like doubles, then other ones are Pink Perfection and Kanzan. They're great trees to have in your garden. The other thing about cherry trees is their foliage. So we used to have this in our garden, and it's Prunus nigra. And the reason why it's called nigra is because it has these dark leaves. There's a few of the blossom here, but it's just going over, and you can see all the purple foliage that follows. So that's a lovely one to have in your garden because you have very early flowers, and then you have a contrast of colour later on in the year. And often your cherries will give you different colours in the autumn as well. Sometimes the leaves will be yellow or a reddy colour. So you do have all-round interest, not just for the blossom. Last but certainly not least is one of the biggest cherries. It's the great white cherry called Taihaku. And this would be a wonderful tree to have in your garden if you've got plenty of space. Or if you're really looking to encourage wildlife, then the native of the UK cherry would be a good one. Most of these cherries that we have here and have been developed especially for their blossom are from Japan, but our native cherry, which is called avium, obviously attracts our native wildlife. This will get massive, can get up to 20 metres high, so only if you've got a fantastic estate or field should you plant that one, but I highly recommend it. So hopefully now you've got a better understanding of what to consider when you're going to buy your cherry blossom, and you can find one that's perfect for you.